everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tube, where it's our show where we usually would review things in the world of television that usually would mean episode-by-episode reviews of currently on-air shows. However, today we are doing a predictions for the future of one of our shows that we've already reviewed for some time now. We're back again with Reacher Season 4, which again, for context, I will be spoiling some things from the first 3 seasons of Reacher, so if you have not seen Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, this is not the video for you. We are making this after we have just completed each and every episode review for the 3rd season of Reacher, which just wrapped a couple weeks ago. So we're now back on another Reacher hiatus until next year when Neagley Season 1 premiere, and then following that would be the 4th season of Reacher. So, with that being said, however, so like I said, I will be spoiling things from those first 3 seasons. So if you are watching it without even having seen Season 3, that's kind of, where I would recommend you to take a step back. I will be spoiling not all of seasons of the show, but more like a good portion of it, just kind of like to kind of paint the picture where I would like to see as a consumer into a 4th season. Which again, thankfully, we already have confirmation we are going to be getting it, and it's a bit difficult to give these sort of predictions because it is an adaptation, but it's not your traditional adaptation where where we would be getting the book, because it's a book. It's adapted from a book series by I forgot the author's name. I'm not really much of a literate person, as most people can tell. But there have been now over 25 books in the Reacher library. 3 have been adapted to TV shows. 2 have been adapted to the Tom Cruise movies. So for me as a viewer, I'm like, well, at least, again, there's over still 20 books they haven't even touched upon yet. So I don't think and just to get quite into it, I will be touching a bit on Neagley Season 1 and also on Reacher Season 4 a little bit, because again, Neagley Season 1 is going to be a new review series when we come back to things in 2026, and then Reacher Season 4 will come after that. They haven't even started production on that, which kind of sucks, because at least when we were in the middle of Season 2, hey, Season 3 was already in the works, so we knew it wasn't totally far off. Meaning, if that's the case, we're probably not going to get Season 4 till probably the end of 2026, if we're lucky. If we're still going to get at least one new Reacher episode per year. So I don't. Well, and that's the first thing. I think Reacher Season 4 will come out the very end of season. It will be a Season 2 release strategy. It will be released at December 2026. It will bleed into 2027, and hopefully by then they should be in production of Season 5. As for Neagley Season 1, that is clearly going to be another early 2026 show, kind of where Reacher Season 3 was, kind of being in that prime time position, no pun intended, on it. Again, they have plenty of show. They don't necessarily have to burn. Hell, Reacher Season 4 can be saved to 2027. They got tons of content for 2026 already. So I don't see there to be the need to rush it out. But with that being said, to kind of, once again transition to where, I'm going to do a brief segment on Neagley Season 1, which will be technically the next Reacher universe canonicity event to happen, which, if you don't know, it revolves around Neagley as the character. We've seen her before prominently in Season 2, but has made gracious appearance throughout the 1st and 3rd seasons now, and she has become quite popular with the audience. And of course, obviously, because this is Amazon Prime and it's all about the age of franchises and expansions, we will be getting the first Reacher spinoff in Neagley, which I find to be interesting. I think she's a great character. I'm a little hesitant, though, because, again, that's going to kind of be its own original source material. There will be no book to adapt. I have heard through the internet there was a Neagley pseudo-heavy book that could be adapted to Season 2 or 3 should that series become popular enough to garnish its own thing. But I think that's going to be mainly its own storyline, which I'm very interested in. Obviously, it's a testimony. It's the same showrunner and creator that made Reacher going to Neagley, so having them kind of craft an original story based on the character, and we kind of already know, Jack Reacher will be making an appearance up there, so I'm just curious to see how that's going to go. I'm really, really curious, because I'm always interested in a great story. Like, Neagley is such a really good character. I enjoy her whenever she's on screen, and I cannot wait to see how she's going to lead her own project, how she's going to lead her own story without having to support Reacher there, because we already knew Season 3, even Season 2, Season 1 have showcased she's a very capable person. She doesn't even need Reacher. She doesn't. Like, she can literally do things on her own, and that is the power of the storytelling as well. That we don't even need Reacher in the scene. So I think the only thing I just want to see from Neagley Season 1, hopefully we'll get more, is I don't want I kind of want a noir theme thing because she's a PI that was established in season 2. That's kind of her career direction now in her post military life, and I think that would be the best cue for her character to go next. Have like an old fashioned murder mystery crime thing, and I think that would be very beneficial because Reacher is a very smart guy, but he always relies on his on brute strength to get through a moment. Where for Neely, like, she's a very capable person, but I don't think she's not going to be another Reacher. She's not. That's clear in that her. She has her own set of skills and abilities that I think is going to be more prominent in her own show. And I personally, I can't say that enough. I can't wait to see it. I cannot wait to see how they are able to kind of evolve that character, kind of grow that character. And obviously there is a minor expectation that, like, I've heard some other minor thing that there is a possibility she might be taken out of Reacher as a show because she's kind of doing her own thing, but I don't think so. I think the two characters will cross pollinate because it makes sense. It really does make sense. Like they're always there to lean on each other to help each other out. So that's where my standpoint is at. Because I don't quite think you could just take one of the Reacher books and kind of give it to her. I don't think that's how it's gonna work. But again, like one of the books that I was thinking about, like, because I don't read, like I said before, and this is kind of the segue to season 4. I don't read. My partner does. She's a very lover, a book lover, and I respect that. That's just not for me. I want to say there was a book. I forgot the name of it off the top of my head. That was a very Reacher and Neely. It was like a team up throughout the entire book, similar to how season 2 was when that one adapted Bad Luck and Trouble, where like you got to see a lot of Neely, and that could work as a Neely season. That could they could definitely just have similar to how Reacher season 2 had a lot of Neely, even though it wasn't her season. We could definitely have that as the reversal. And I'm thinking way too much ahead. I really am, but like. It would make sense for that to be the case. It would very much do. I can't deny that, to be honest with you. But then going to Reacher season 4, I mean, there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of books that they have done. Every book is different. Everything is very critical. But I don't like the book. I already heard they already picked the book. It's just not publicly announced yet. If it was me, and I've skimmed through some of the books out there, the one that I think would be very interesting because I said this in season 3, the predictions, and it came true. And I think maybe I knew something about what book they were going to pick. I don't think they announced Persuader yet as the season 3 adaptation yet for whatever book they were choosing. There's 2 directions you could take season 4 to. I want to see a psychological villain, or I want to see Braun meets flexible. I akin to the Arkham Origins fight between Batman and Copperhead, where she was very acrobatic. The character of Copperhead fighting Batman, who was like very he's Batman, but he's a very capable man fighting a very acrobatical woman who can also have her own ability. I would love either of those 2 directions to be the next villain. I think that's Reacher had Paulie, and again, as much as I would have loved for them to keep Paulie alive, make him the villain of his own season, which again, not going to happen. Each book it's kind of self-contained, so like whatever characters you see in that season / book now will not carry over to the next season unless they have a cameo such as the detective from season 1 going into season 2. So that's kind of where I stand from the villain perspective, because like season 1 was more about just it was a traditional like seeing one lone man fighting a gang, and then season 2 was about fighting corruption and fighting very skilled, capable former army vets, and then season 3 was about fighting a pseudo militia and Paulie. So I feel like Reacher has, in terms of like a scope of threat, has faced a lot of types of enemies so far. So that's where like I don't know what book it's gonna be. I either want it to be a psychological villain, like someone that doesn't physically pose a challenge to Reacher, but can somehow get into his head. Because Reacher is a very stern man, and we kind of seen the cracks of what he stands for in season 3, when he was very dedicated to an extent to trying to take down Quinn. That was his main goal for us season 3. He didn't really care about anything else. His goal was to get in the same room as Quinn and kill him. That was his goal. That was his objective. So how do you find someone who is, you know, still very stoic, doesn't really showcase much range and emotion because he doesn't want to. That's not him as a character. How do you? That's the type of villain I would love to see. And then the other thing is like him finding someone that's very, again, not physically capable, but can like really much like fight him in a different sort of way that he's not used to. I think those are the two elements that I want to see in season 4. In the book, again, I read around. I think the one that the author, actually, I think his name is Lee Price or Lee Pace. I forgot which one it was. I think it's Lee Price. That I would love to see get adapted is the Midnight Line, which is focused more on opioids, which I kind of have like a kinship to it because I'm reviewing Madlock season 1. If there's any follow up people from that show review to here, where it would be interesting. You know, I think it's still the same method of organized crime, which I guess is kind of still the theme of all these Reacher seasons. There's always some sense of an organized thing, like organized gang, organized corruption, organized militia. So it's like it wouldn't be that much out of the realm. I think it'd be different though. I think, you know, they touch upon these like, you know, very disturbing like topics that is not necessarily something that like, you know, can be taken out lightly. But I do believe after everything the show's been through so far, I think 100% that would be a storyline and a direction that would love to be taken over now. Obviously, I'm aware there's some carryover from a different book, so but they can easily omit that. They don't necessarily have to do it. And remember, the Reacher seasons are forming their own continuity. There's no way I can see Alan Richardson going back to film younger things too many times. There's only a limitation to what you can do. Because, you know, the actor's getting old, the character's getting older. Because for the books, they kind of like, you know, they're books, so like they're the written media. You don't necessarily have to like abide yourself by, you know, a timeline per se, but like Reacher's a bit different though, with that logic. But again, I'm just hopeful if we can get 5 more seasons of Reacher. I'm just hopeful of it. Let's get to season 10 already. But I think that would be a very interesting storyline to tackle. I think that would be a book I would love to see get adapted, only because of the storyline alone, and the author recommends it. Yeah, I know there was another one that I think the actor for Reacher said that he would love to adapt was probably the one. It was the second book of the series, so it would be the follow-up to the first season's book, in which that one is all about Reacher getting framed for a murder, which I think, personally speaking, it's an interesting storyline. I don't quite think I could see that just quite yet. I don't know. I really don't. I don't think that would be a book I would want to see adapted yet. Maybe down the road, but it's not something that I really am clamoring to get to, in my opinion. That's not for me. But regardless, you know, when it comes to season 4, and it all ties into the villain, because as a character, like for Reacher, like it's not really something I can say what I want to see him do. I think we started to see a little cracks of progression in season 2, a little bit season 3, where he can show to be attachful. You know, I think his attachments to people he has gained respect for, I don't even think he considers as friends or family. It's just people he considers, I have respect for you, I think that is kind of like where I see the character scene, where like maybe like to build it up a little bit. I think that's the only way I can see it, because like as far as Richard's character, he doesn't really grow that much. He kind of is the same person. He's just kind of, you know, amending for actions left forgotten or actions that he never resolved. And I think when it comes to that, I think that would be, I would love that, you know, him to be pushed, like I said, to a psychological villain, because it's someone he's never really unloaded to. He doesn't have a therapist. He doesn't have like someone constant to talk to. He's always on the road. Maybe Neely's the only constant person he can speak to at times, which again, it only really is probably just like whenever he's, you know, in need of help from her, because, you know, he needs like a little additional backup, and she's always his go-to. So that's who I always see of him, and I think that's why I would love a psychological pro, like having Reacher kind of be mentally broken down and starting to finally feel the cracks of whoever's torturing him. And that's kind of like I'll leave it there when it comes to that, because I love knowing more about Reacher. Season 1 more focused on his personal life. Season 2 and 3 focused more on his army life. So I think going back into the personal realm would be something that I would be more intrigued in, to be honest with you. To kind of see Reacher, you know, a man who's faced it all, who's faced a lot of brawling enemies, a lot of big enemies, a lot of enemies that were within his range, and now him fighting someone that taking on someone that would be a mental challenge for him. It's not going to be as easy as just punching him out. It's a little bit more extra steps than that. And I think that's kind of where I would love to see the story go next, to be honest with you. And, you know, so but I feel like at the end of the day, because again, it's so difficult to do these sort of predictions because as a show and as an adaptation, it's not like a Game of Thrones. It's not like a Harry Potter where like you just go to the next book, you go to the next book. You want to do something that kind of keeps the audience going. And from what I understand, a lot of the classic books, a lot of the older books they have been doing so far, have found a way to be unique, putting Reacher in these new impossible challenges. Because I don't see this show lasting X amount of years. I don't see this going for like, we're not going to adapt every book in the roster. I don't think that's possible. I think, you know, it's Amazon Prime at the end of the day. You know, they're eventually going to, like, even though this is the perfect type of show to, like, you can keep this going, like, every other year, like, almost every year. Hey, brand new Reacher season, right here, ready to go for you. Like, that is 100% always within the cards. But I just know the network. I know how television is nowadays. I don't see it. I want to say do the seasons that I think would be super big and super, you know, like that would entertain us, because, you know, every season so far, season 1 had, like, you know, just the unmovable force angle working for it. Season 2 was about, you know, just the camaraderie in the team, and season 3 was about the undercover nature and fighting someone that could be finally bigger than you. So I think season 4, I would love it to take a psychological nature. I would love there to be some sort of mental thinking component for the character, and whoever his, you know, supporting roster is for that one, to kind of, you know, additionalize the assistance of that, to double down. Like, it's not just about punching people. It's not just about, you know, getting through the mission, getting through the day. It's about, you know, really looking at yourself, like, why are you doing that? Maybe there was a little sneak peek into why I'm looking at that, because at the end of season 3, he and Neagley, before they split up to go back to their own lives, Neagley, these are like, what is Reacher as a person? What motivates him? And while we got to see a whole season firmly about that, and if anyway season 2 as well, what happens when you take that away from him? What happens when you mentally break him down, make him realize, is everything I'm doing is correct? And again, Reacher's not that type of person to break, but I think that would just be something interesting that I would love to see, to allow him to kind of, you know, figure out what is next for him, what is going to be that next hurdle he has to jump through. Because, you know, I think Paulie was probably the first time he actually was legitimately concerned, because, like, it was an immovable force meeting another immovable force, one that was bigger and taller. And I'm always going to talk about that. I always am, because, again, I love Paulie as a character. I really, really do. I'll talk more about that next week when we do the season 3 review. But in all honesty, it is something that I think would be great to see next, because season 4 is always about reinventing the wheel. And again, you could just, like, I don't think I'll ever get tired of Reacher just being a badass, kind of like, you know, doing his own thing whenever he wants. I don't think I'll ever get tired of that. But what I definitely want to see is the character being pushed to new limits. We've seen him being pushed to his physical limits. I want to see him being pushed to his mental limits. And I think that would make even more of a better result in season 4. But yeah, with that being said, you know, that's kind of where my stance is on that, just to kind of, you know, lay the land of it. But yeah, I look forward to it whenever season 4 comes out. I don't know where I'll be in my life by the time we get to season 4. You know, they haven't even started filming it yet, so like it's going to be a long wins away for that. I can't wait to announce what book it is, so I can do a little minor reading into it and like get mentally prepared for that. But I'm very excited for Neagley as well, to kind of, you know, like I said, get into her character, figure out what's her story as well. You know, like what's her thing beyond Reacher, and I'm quite excited for that first, when we get to that first early next year. But with all that being said, let me know down below, what did you want to see in the first season of Neagley, hopefully, and the 4th season of Reacher. What books do you like about it? What books do you think you want to see get adapted? Let's talk down below. I would love to have a conversation with you about it. But I really believe that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So around the way, this has been What's to from ActionX, giving my minor-ish predictions on the 4th season of Reacher. If you want to know what we're doing normally, What's to do besides these Reacher-related videos, we are doing Suits LA, Rookie, and Matlock reviews for their episodes each and every week after brand new episodes after they air. But if you don't care about Reacher, you're kind of in luck. Next week, we're going to be doing a season 3 definitive review. We'll be spoiling everything about the 3rd season of Reacher, and what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, because, you know, I want to. But if you want to keep the season 4 conversation going, again, we will return to the Reacher universe next year with Neegly, followed by Reacher season 4. So stay tuned until then. But if this is the end of the road for now, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate the support. I do appreciate the engagement for Reacher. I love it. I love to see it. But again, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, like, favorite, share if you want to. Ring that bell and follow us on social media for more. But until we see each other again, thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe out there. Be good to each other. And as always, peace out.